Warning.
The opinions expressed in this content are those of the host and its guests.
Services allow
10, 9, 8,
Every call is
7,
ballistic.
6,
Things the fire service can't
5,
stand here. Safely
4,
created new account.
3, 2, 1.
What's going on, guys? My name is Isaac Pote, your host from the Tailboard Podcast. I apologize that I've been away for quite a while. I think I haven't dropped a video in probably a little over a month. I've got dad duties going on. I'm a dad, a foster dad, adoptive dad. I do work full-time as an aircraft mechanic, and I volunteer fire. So, got to get all those things done before I can have fun and producing a podcast. Now, that being said, this is a one-man show. I don't have any sponsors and will no longer be taking any sponsors. The coffee you had heard me drop in before is still a thing, and I will be producing that soon. But I'm not going to be shoving it down your throat saying, buy this, buy that. With that being said, this podcast is for all fire, military, police, medical personnel who just need something to listen to in their off time. Maybe take a little break from all the heated exchanges that happen throughout our careers. And for the new guys, they just need to learn learn something new for the time being. That being said, my guest today is Chris Cottle out of Daytona area, Florida. He goes by Chats with Chappy on all social medias, and I'm going to let him introduce himself right now.
All right. So, well, thanks for letting me be on here. Firstly, I just want to say that, I am a believer. I'm a child of God first and foremost. I'm a husband. I'm a father. And then I'm a chaplain and I'm a firefighter, driver, engineer. I've been in the fire service for 23 years and I've been a chaplain for a little over 7. So, I kind of see both sides of the coin of what it's like to sit in the recliner and then have someone standing there staring at you in the recliner.
Oh, yeah. So I met you on Facebook and I saw one of your videos. And usually when I find a video, I like to try to reach out to somebody. Usually their follower count dictates that. If they're in the millions, thousands, things like that, it's basically a crapshoot whether or not they're going to reply. For me, lucky, you replied, and I thought that was super cool, and thank you for doing that. We're going to share with you now a video off of TikTok.
Before you get to that, I will tell you that one of my goals is to read and at least respond to every single message, because I don't want somebody out there thinking that I'm bigger than I am, and I'm not. I'm just a fireman.
Absolutely. And I love that aspect. I really do. I mean, you're saying that, no matter how big you get, you're going to find time to at least say, hey, hi, or how are you?
Yeah.
That's respectable. It really is. Now, going into this video, it's on TikTok. You can find him on Chats with Chappy on Facebook and TikTok, where I found him. And we're going to view the video called Hills I Will Die On as a Fire Chaplain. By the way, music was killer, by the way. Love that.
That was TikTok.
Oh, yeah.
TikTok
Let's
picked
go to
that.
this first point. You don't have to believe what I believe for me to care about you.
Not in the slightest. So
Let's break that down.
yeah, so I identify as a Bible believing, Christ follower Christian, and I have friends who are not. I have friends who are Jewish. I have friends who are Muslim. I have a friend that identifies as a Satanist, and I reflect back on I think it's in the book of Matthew where Jesus goes out and he doesn't preach to people straight away. What he typically does is he meets them where they are. If they're cold, he tries to figure out a way to warm them. If they're hungry, he feeds them. If they're tired, they need to take a break, whatever the case may be. And so that's my thought process is, just because you don't believe the same thing or the same exact thing that I believe doesn't mean that our interaction, our friendship, my brotherhood is off limits to you. That's ridiculous. So,
Yeah.
first and foremost, I wanted to draw a line in the sand and say, I don't care what you believe. My job
Mm.
is not to, and this is a very debatable thing, but my job is not to force Jesus down your throat.
Mm.
My job is to care about you and love you. And
Mhm.
if Jesus comes up in discussion, cool. And I, I I get a lot of hate for that kind of thought process, but it's the bees and flies mentality. Like I'm gonna definitely get you with honey than I am with other things. So, that was
It,
first and foremost what I wanted to draw a line in the sand of.
that surprises me that people would look at you in a different light because you're coming to people who aren't Christians. It seems like people forget, or maybe they just haven't been to church because they don't believe in church, or whatever the case may be. Or if you're not going to church, you should still try to read your Bible. And if you're doing these things, you would read these passages where Jesus washed the feet of sinners.
Hmm.
I mean, the lady who was a lady of the night. I don't want to get too graphic because these are going to be uh, shorts on TikTok, and I don't want to get banned. Um, but you have the lady of the night who comes up and begs Jesus for forgiveness and help, and he washes her feet,
Hmm.
and does these things, and it
Well,
just it surprises me.
you look
Go
at
ahead.
like the one of the famous things of Zacchaeus, the wee little man. Um, he was a sinner in the eyes of the public because he was a tax collector. And Jesus goes, I'm going to come and I'm going to have go get all your people and I'm going to come to your house and have lunch, dinner, brunch, whatever. But he goes to his house and he eats with them. He doesn't go in there and he doesn't preach at them. We don't know what he said while he was there, but
Mhm.
he goes in there and he sits down and he communes with them. And that's what I view as our position as Christians, as
Mhm.
people, is to go out and just commune with people, get to know people, where they are, and start from there.
Absolutely. No, let's preach on. I don't want to take up too much time on one single topic because there's obviously four more topics to talk on. But this is such a good topic to talk on. Can we breach on hypocrites for a minute? I mean, people look at people like us, and I'm not a great Christian either. I cuss. I used to smoke. I used to do drugs, things like that, and I've changed for the better, but not because God told me that's what I needed to do. I did it for my own health. Coincidentally, it tends to help, and I'm in my faith, which is great. But I know far too many people who bear the badge of a Christian or whatever religion you are, and then they do things that aren't Christian like. And then ridicule you for it, saying that you're
Mhm.
not doing that. Well, okay, what about you? What about what you're doing in your life? You want to ridicule me, but what are you doing? You know?
Well, and
Um,
and for me, that's not my place. I grew up in a Southern Baptist church where my father was the pastor,
mhm,
and not anything against my dad, but when you are behind the scenes in a church of any flavor, you will start, if you're paying attention, you will start to see the hypocrisy. My dad, when we lived down in the Keys and he was a pastor down there, um, the church went after him because of some decisions he made that weren't bad decisions. They were progressive decisions.
mhm,
And they went after him and actually asked him to leave because he was trying to better the church instead of just keeping it a single organism. He was trying to grow it into going out and doing outreach and again, finding people where they are and bringing them into the herd. And so, like, you see the hypocrisy. And, so for me, I had to say, that's not my job, is to, worry about hypocrisy. Like,
mhm.
God will deal with that in His own timing in His own way. And that's not mine to deal with. Uh, and that's peaceful for me because one, I
Mhm.
don't need to worry about it because it's not mine to worry about.
Mhm.
And two is, you know, they can say what they want, and I will contradict them if I feel like it's appropriate, but not just to win a Facebook argument. That's not my goal.
Yeah,
And like you can go
100%.
through all my comments on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and whatever else I might be on. I engage people in a thoughtful, intentional way to where I just ask questions and I try to get you to think. I'm not going to come in there and tell you you're wrong and all that. I want to engage you. I want to get you to think and have a discussion. And that's one of the hardest parts about social media is,
Hmm.
if you go on the retirement video I did back in, I think it was January, there's just people calling me all kinds of names, but there's no discussion.
Hmm.
It's not a thought-provoking question or a engagement question. It's just, I don't agree with you, plain and simple. Here's an expletive of what I think about you. So,
Yeah,
I can't do anything about those. Those people are going to do what they want to do, and they're lashing out. Typically, what I see is they're lashing out because they have something going on. I highly
yeah,
doubt that there's people out there that genuinely hate me. There may be, but I highly doubt there's people that genuinely hate me because of what I said on social media, because nothing
they
I've
just
said on
disagree with
social
you a little
media
bit.
is I don't want to say it's not wrong, but it's not intentionally conflicting.
Hmm. So, were you a firefighter first and then a chaplain, or was that backwards?
No, so like I said, I've been in the fire service for 23 years.
Hmm.
Technically 24. I did 2 years as a volunteer, and then I have been in a career since 2004. And then in 2019, I had a guy come to me and goes, "You're the most religious guy I know. I need you to help me build a chaplaincy program," with no intention of becoming chaplain. Went through all these things, learned a lot, presented information to the fire chief, and he texts me one day and goes, "Congratulations, you're the new fire chaplain."
Wow.
So,
So,
and it conflicted with everything I had in the SOG about it. And then he goes, "Oh
mhm.
yeah, I fixed that." And he goes, "I put an asterisk that says, or otherwise appointed by the fire chief."
Oh,
So
nice.
here I am.
So, question about that. There's callings from God, right? Do you believe that might have been it? That was
Oh yeah.
yours?
Yeah, it wasn't anything on my radar. Maybe because I wasn't looking, but everything, and I had this discussion, and you can cut it out if you want, but when I was talking with Tyler on his podcast,
Hmm.
is all the things that I had been through since 2007, the depression, the anxiety, the post-traumatic stress injuries, and the burnout, and the moral injuries, and all these things, they all culminated in that moment, because everything that had been leading up to that goes, you can be a chaplain and you can speak to people that nobody else can speak to because you've walked in those ruts and you've worn that shirt.
Absolutely.
So for me,
I
yeah,
kind of
it is a
I feel
calling.
that way. I love that's a calling for you, and I'm not going to cut that out. Tyler from The Forge is an amazing person and deserves to be called out for what he's doing. Tyler, great work, man. Keep up. The videos you posted that had Five Finger Death Punch in there is insane, by the way. So keep that up. Uh, I feel like my calling came from uh, my past into fire. You want to talk about God giving you callings? Um, I'm not going to stay on me for any amount of time other than just to say um, I lost my dad. I lost my brother to suicide, my dad to cancer, my mom to alcoholism, and then I lost my firstborn son in
Oh man.
2018 on February 1st. Had anencephaly. We knew he wasn't going to be alive, born long. We just didn't know how long. It ended up being 98 minutes.
Mm.
Held my finger, cried, and passed away in my arms.
Oh man, I'm sorry.
Um, man, that was 8 years ago, almost, reaching on almost 10 now, or 9, 10. And I tell people all the time that it sucked then. It's a building block now. And why I say it like that is because now that I'm in the fire service, I want to use all of my trauma that I went through, and there's a lot more that I'm not going to get into. Not that I wouldn't with you, just for the sake of the podcast. It's just, you know, everybody has their links to trauma. Mine's ish. um, I try to use everything I went through into my fire service. So somebody loses their dad, somebody loses their mom, somebody loses their brother, somebody loses their son. You know, whether it be from SIDS, from a disease, from alcohol, from SI, from cancer. I mean, whatever the case may be. I want to be someone who says, I don't know your exact pain that you're feeling right now. I know how I felt when it happened to me, but
Mhm.
I'm here for you. I want to be the arm you lean on when you need help, but I also want to be here and tell you that what you're going through right now may be major in your eyes. This is why you called 911, but I'm telling you that you're going to be okay today. And obviously don't lie to the patient, you know, ever. But and obviously don't make promises you can't keep. They tell you all the time, don't keep promises. But you know, if it's something where you know for a fact the patient's going to make it through, there's nothing wrong with saying you're going to be okay today. You know. But anyway, moving on. Let's see.
You want to hit point two?
What does that mean to you?
So I like like I alluded to a few minutes ago, I've dealt with some ideations in my past. I've
Same.
dealt with some severe depression in my past. I've dealt with a lot of anxiety. I've been diagnosed with post-traumatic injury, complex PTSD. Like I've been through the ringer in my career. And I think back on those times when, with a fresh perspective, of course, but looking back on those times is how different would my life be if I would have just come forward and said, you know what? I'm not okay right now.
Mm,
Mentally, emotionally, financially, financially is constantly skipped over. But, there was a lot of times where if I would have just said something to somebody, I may not have had to struggle so long and so hard. And so that's what when I had part of, I think before we were talking about ADHD. Like one of
mm,
my ADHD superpowers is that I read people pretty well. And so whenever I walk in and I look at you and I go, hey man, how's things going? And you're like, I'm fine, or I'm good. I can
the
see
classic
it.
sign.
I can see it in their eyes. And I'm like, no, no, look at me in my eyes. How are you? What's going on? Let's go talk about it. And if someone would have done that for me, I think it would have changed a lot of the hardship in my life. So, that's what that's kind of about is just coming out and, we got to get past this. I grew up in the hazing days. I grew up in the suck it up buttercup. But, I'll tell a quick story. I had a battalion chief or a captain that was he was a hard as nails kind of guy. Grew up in Jersey or wherever he came from. And my my mother-in-law's fiance was at the grocery store in my zone across the street from my station and dropped dead. So I was on shift. I go over there and we're doing what we do, full code, the whole nine. And they're asking like, looking through his wallet. I'm like, his name is such and such. He's got this kind of medical issue. He takes these medications, and they look at me like, how do you know this? I'm like, that's my soon-to-be father-in-law or stepfather-in-law, whatever, be however you want to say it. But he didn't make it. We go back to the station, and I was kind of very stoic. And this hard as nails captain comes up and he puts his hand on my shoulder and he goes, get your stuff off my truck. And that's a hard line to hear when you're going through some stuff. He goes, get your stuff off my truck. Go in the
Mm-hmm.
bunk room. He goes, I don't care if you need to make a phone call, if you need to cry, if you need to scream. He goes, do not break anything in my station. But when you get yourself squared away, take whatever time you need. I'm going to jump on the truck in your place. And he goes, whenever you're done, you come and get me and you can get back on my truck.
Damn.
And I don't think he knew what he was doing
That
at the time.
I want to say that real quick. Just interrupt you. Sorry. That is true fucking leadership through and through.
And I don't think he knew what he was doing all the time. And I've told him this story several times, and he tells me he doesn't remember it. He remembers it. Um, but that was a huge turning point in my life for someone to come along that I looked up to with such a high regard, and I was trying to emulate being stoic and you know compartmentalizing and all that kind of stuff. And he goes, "You need to go deal with your crap." And so that's kind of what that point comes into is you got to know when you got to say I'm not okay. And because one, if you're not mentally okay and emotionally okay, and you come to work, whatever position you're in, you're putting up my life in jeopardy and your life in jeopardy. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's a game I don't play. But I also want you as a person, as a firefighter, as a husband, as a whatever, to be okay, to not have to go down those trudging paths by yourself, thinking that this is my problem. It's all of our problems. If we want to preach about brotherhood and sisterhood, it's all our problems.
There's nothing ashamed. You brought up like financial troubles earlier. There's nothing ashamed with being honest. Like, okay, you're dealing with some financial troubles, maybe. And I do this to myself, right? I put myself in situations I shouldn't have done. I bought shit I shouldn't have bought. And I put myself in financial trouble. It's okay to be like, if someone looks at you and goes, "Hey man, are you okay?" You know what? No, I'm not. I'm dealing with some financial shit. Here's the thing. I put myself there. I'm okay. I'm letting you know, like, yeah, I've got problems. I'm gonna be honest. I got problems, but I put myself there. I'll be okay, but I just want to be honest and let you know what's going on. Like,
Well, and on
it is
the
what
other side of
it.
that, not too long ago, I had some unexpected financial burdens arise. And
Mm-hmm,
I didn't tell many people. I got my ride or dies that I communicate with and I'm very open with. And
mm-hmm,
I get a phone call one day and I was literally putting groceries on my credit card.
mm,
And I got a phone call and the union president goes, "Hey, are you home?" And I'm like, "No, I'm actually at the grocery store right now." And he goes, "Okay." He goes, "Oh, I'll be at your house when you get home." And he came up and he handed me a wad of cash. And he
oh
was
shit.
like, "You, you need this more than I think you were letting on." And, you know, I told him that, I had literally just put groceries on my credit card and, he just gave me a hug, and he's like, "We got this. We'll get through this."
Mm-hmm,
And then, there's no repayment involved. The union
mm-hmm,
stepped up and, there was somebody else that gave a little bit of extra money, but, I'm not impervious to going through stuff. People look at me and they say, I try everything I can not to put myself on a pedestal. I struggle
mm-hmm.
just like everybody else.
Same.
And, financially, I struggle mentally, emotionally. Like I go see a therapist is average of once a month, if not once every other month, depending on how good life is. But we're all subject to issues. And so, somebody said something to him and or he saw it, I don't know, but then he just stepped up and goes, "Here's a wad of cash, do what you need to do." And that held me through. It held me through until I got paid again. It held me through until I got some stuff squared away. And now I'm doing okay. But now
So,
I look at it as it's my responsibility now. So the next time that somebody else is going through a financial
mm,
hardship, and that, everybody passes the hat in the union and says, "Hey, if anybody wants to help out," it's kind of my responsibility now because I've been on the other side of that. I know what it feels like. So I think taking that and going, okay, I've only got a few dollars, but they need these few dollars a little bit more than I do right now.
so
Sharing that burden.
let's, we always got the little angel and the little devil on our shoulder telling us, what to do, what not to do, kind of thing, right? Um, what do you do when you're met with somebody who's an avid drinker, addict, maybe caffeine, alcohol, doesn't matter. They gamble, right? And they put themselves in a situation like I mentioned, buying things I shouldn't have bought, and then putting myself in a pickle of going, well, shit, I have bills to pay. I shouldn't have bought this stuff, but I did it anyway. And you put yourself in these situations through your own actions, not necessarily through like, oh, my car broke down and I need $500 to fix it. That would be I would think in my own head, a reasonable situation. But if you know the person to be a gambler, an addict of whatever sort, like, what do you do with something like that?
You have to be very cautious, and I think it's going to be definitely case by case. But having the ability to help is one thing, and having the burden to help, and I mean burden in a good way, but like having that need to want to help somebody is another. And if they're a gambler, there's going to be some restrictions on how I help you, whether I
Mm-hmm.
pay them directly.
Mm-hmm.
Like everybody's like, oh, well, they gamble and drink their money away. Okay, well, fine, cool. Give me the information so I can call your fill in the blank, who are your debtor or your debt,
Mm-hmm.
and I will put that money directly towards your debt.
I think
Um,
that's
you know,
completely reasonable.
but at the end of the day, it's the same way I view the whole um, panhandler mindset. Everybody
Mm-hmm.
sees the guys and gals standing on the street corner begging for money. If you feel called to give, give. But you're not responsible for how that person spends the money
Hmm.
because
That's important.
you have resource that God has blessed you with, and if you pass that on to somebody else, it's the same thing. If I give you a birthday present or a Christmas
Mm-hmm.
present or a Fourth of July present, whatever you want to say, and
Mm-hmm.
it's excuse me, it's a vase, and
Mm-hmm.
you take the vase, you're very thankful for that vase, but then you go home and you smash it. That was a gift. It
Mm-hmm.
has nothing to do with what you do with it. So in that regard, is that person that's gambling, yes, we want to try to get them some help, or maybe it's drawing a line in the sand and saying, no, we're not going to help you until fill in the blank.
Yeah. Yeah.
You go get help. Like there's in the right circumstances, I don't believe that there's a problem with putting stipulations on assistance if the person cannot control their their idle hands or their situation or whatever
Yeah.
case may be. So,
100%.
but I do think it is case by case, and it has to be done with maturity, and it has to be done with a little bit of grace because we all need grace in certain times of our lives. And, like you talked about smoking, I smoked for 27 years, and I quit a
Mm-hmm.
couple of years ago, and if somebody gave me money, they're like, oh, well, he's gonna go spend it on cigarettes. No, you know, if I can't, I won't. But we've all needed a little bit of grace in our life on things that we've run into and things that we've done, and it is what it is. Like I can't control what somebody does with the gift that I give them at the end of the day.
That makes sense. Moving on to point three, we're gonna see getting into something. So your job is to save lives. My job is to make sure yours doesn't become a statistic. I think
And that
that hits hard for a lot of people.
and that was a hard line to put in there. I kind of I wanted to make a splash, but I wanted to make a splash in the right way, if that makes sense. We
Mm-hmm.
have um, we have too many people in our line of work that, and I think it goes back to like 2016. There's only one year where line of duty deaths and um, suicide. I was trying to figure out a better way to say it, but
You're
it
good.
is what it is. Line of duty deaths and self-inflicted wounds or injuries, death were the same, and that was in I believe 2020 during
Mm-hmm.
or 2022, one of the two during the epidemic. But the rest of the time, almost every year, it's a drastic difference between the line of duty deaths and suicide. And you have they're not they're not small sections. They're 50, 100 or more nationwide than the line of duty deaths. And
I have
so
one right
that's
here in
what
my
that.
my hometown.
hmm So a couple of years ago, my firefighter. When I say my firefighter, not the my firefighter. my firefighter, the guy that sat in my back seat, he died of self-inflicted wounds. And,
Mm.
especially when you're the chaplain and you got the guy that just died, like that's a heavy burden to carry. And, some people pointed like, blame, why didn't you see this? Why didn't you do this? Like when I'm on and one thing that I think a lot of people struggle with, when I'm on the truck as a driver engineer, I'm a driver engineer. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
there's some chaplaincy in the back, but I'm your brother. I'm there for you. And, sometimes I get caught up in stuff and I don't see, I want to give people sometimes I want to give people too much grace and too much understanding.
Mm-hmm.
So, but long story short is there's a lot of statistics out there on firefighters and how we're dying. And I want to make a point to one, create some curiosity so people will go out and actually look. And then two, you know, explain to them how severe this epidemic of death is in our line of work. And so whenever I tell you or I ask you, are you okay? That's what I'm
Mm-hmm.
getting to is I care about you, but I also don't want you to become a statistic at the same time.
100%. Makes sense. Makes total sense. And people need to understand, you know, like I said earlier, I'm a full-time aircraft mechanic, right? But if you told me you were having trouble that day, I'm not a pastor, but I am faithful. And
Hmm.
that means if I need to step up and pray for you or talk about, God with you or whatever the case may be, let's do that because
Yeah.
there's never a time to deny Jesus. There's never a time to say it's not a good time,
Hmm.
because that time may be the only time.
That's true. That's very true. Because most of the time, and I saw a video not too long ago where I believe it was the guy's wife. She posted a video of all the pictures and the videos like 6 months leading up to his death, and it was self-inflicted. And he was the life of the party. He was the smiling one. He was the one that was having a good time because he was putting on a mask and he was performing for everybody. And so you don't know when the last time that you're going to have an interaction with somebody is. So, anytime you have the ability to, you should, try to
Mm.
interact with them on a positive note and have those discussions and say, one of I used to catch a lot of grief because I tell my lieutenant and my firefighter, um, I love you at the end of the shift. I'll see you next shift. I love you, bro. And
Mm-hmm.
they kind of looked at me a little funny, but like, when did it become weird to express that I have genuine love for my boys and
Mm-hmm.
my girls, however your crew works out? Like, when did that become such a weird thing to express that to somebody? Because how often do we go through tough times where if somebody would have just said something simple like, "Hey man, I appreciate you," or "Hey man, you did great." Like affirmations can be life changing. And so for you
Mm-hmm.
to tell somebody, somebody might be thinking, nobody cares about me, nobody loves me, and then you go, "Hey bro, I love you," and I
Mm-hmm.
genuinely mean that. You might have just
Now,
completely changed their shift.
100%. Now, I remember being back in school, and I'm not gonna get it's a longer story, but I'm probably not gonna. I'm gonna paraphrase. I'm gonna add some stuff to it to get the point across because I can't think of the entire story in its full. But uh, the details are kids walking to school. He was a high school student. Walks to school every day. Met a stranger on the side of the road. Looked like he was having a bad day, and the kid always says hi to pretty much everybody that walks by. He's like, "Hey man, how are you?" He goes, "I'm okay." He goes, "Well, I hope you have a good day." And he walks on his way, right? Well, the kid 2 years later was old enough to go get a job. So he gets a job inside a store, and this guy walks in and recognizes the man behind the counter, the guy running it, the kid, right? And he goes, "Hey, are you so and so? Did you used to walk to school?" And he's like, "Yeah." And he's like, "I want you to know that that day you told me I hope I had a good day, I was going to go kill myself that day." He goes, "It was your kindness
Hmm.
that made me think differently." And he goes, "Nobody was nice to me." And he goes, "You were the only person that was nice to me." And that right there cements you'd never know how your reactions to somebody else will change their day for the good or
Oh yeah.
worse. And so that falls in place with talking to your brothers and sisters in the fire department. You know, there doesn't have to be a sensual sexuality type of love towards somebody, but you can say, "Hey, bro, love you. Hope you have a good day." Um, I mean, people are doing it as a joke. The whole, hey, just calling to say goodnight. You know, you've seen it. You've
That might
probably
have
seen those
changed
videos, right?
somebody's life.
Yeah. I mean, they probably meant it as a joke, but like the fact that they laughed and it was like, oh, screw you, dude. That
Mm-hmm.
moment of like serotonin, endorphins, whatever you want to call it, that entered your brain because now you're smiling and happy, probably just made your night 10 times better.
Well,
And you didn't even know it.
I'm glad you talked about the serotonin and the dopamine. Um, and I try to say this as often as I can on any podcast that I can say it on. Do you know
Go
about
ahead.
the Disney hug?
The Disney heart?
Hug. Disney hug.
Disney hug. No.
So from what I understand, there was actually research done on it after the fact. But if you're a costume character with Disney, they set a
Mm-hmm.
rule that if a child comes up and hugs the character, as the character, you are not allowed to let go until the kid does.
Hmm.
Which that in turn, I believe, if I remember correctly reading about it, it was that kind of did some research, and they have found that if you give a genuine hug, like chest to chest hug, for 20
Mm-hmm.
seconds or longer, that after that like 18, 20 seconds, it starts to release serotonin and dopamine. And so like I used to not be a hugger. I didn't like people
Mm-hmm.
touching me. I don't like touching people. But I had somebody give me a genuine brotherly love hug, and I got that release. And so now one of the things I do is I hug my people.
Yeah.
And sometimes they fight it, sometimes playfully, sometimes not. But
I bet
you know,
I bet it's fought a lot.
but yeah, but now people know that I'm a hugger, and so they will come
Yeah.
out and search me out for a hug because like I will hug you until I feel the muscles in your body relax. And it's funny because I was looking at some, everybody talks about Wyatt Earp, right? Like how much of a badass that Wyatt Earp was and tough guy and all
Mm-hmm.
this. He has pictures where he is holding another man's hand, and it's not in a homosexual way.
Mm-hmm.
They felt the protection and the sincere uh, responsibility for somebody else. So like leading people across the road of
Mm-hmm.
horses and carriages and all that, they would grab your hand and walk you across the street as a guy holding another guy's hand. And we've put this whole homosexual spin on affection, and affection is not a bad thing.
Yeah.
We all,
No.
as created beings, we have a need for affection. And so, to go out and people can say whatever they want, but like I genuinely want somebody to feel affection because I don't know what they're going through at that point in their life. And that, like I said before, that might be the teetering point to where they are here tomorrow.
Oh, 100%. Now, personally, I look at it like 20 seconds seems like a long time. you know, not to make light of the situation, but I just like, I'll give you a hug 5-10 seconds, but I don't know about 20 seconds, and that's just my own personal like thought process of it. Now,
Well,
unless
I
it's
will
like,
challenge you. I will challenge you. Find one of your homies, find one of your boys, and do it to them and see what happens. Don't say anything about it. Don't tell them what you're doing, but just go give them a genuine chest hug.
all
And
right,
and 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 you feel like put your arms around them, and you will feel their muscles loosen and their body just kind of melt a little bit. Whether they want to or not, you will feel it. I promise you.
I can do that. Sounds good. And that challenge accepted. There you
There
go.
you go.
All right, moving on to topic 4. And you said faith, therapy, friendships, hobbies. use whatever works. Just don't do nothing.
And that kind of goes into the decompression after shift, after hard calls. Some people lean on their faith. I lean heavily on my faith, and I also lean heavily on therapy. I
Hmm.
call my counselor. I'm on a text base with my counselor where I can text them and be like, today was a hard day. And without getting into any details, like last night, I was on shift and, we got our teeth kicked in all day long. Rex, med calls, we were texting about it yesterday. And last night we had a car roll over in the water in a small creek, went off the edge of the bridge, and the person was obviously dead. And then as we were trying to confirm information and all that kind of stuff, and we extricated the body from the vehicle, we did find a car seat in the back
Hmm.
seat. And so like you have your spidey sense all go off and we start searching for a kid. Thankfully the kid was not there, but we searched for 30 minutes before we found out the kid was not there. And like that's a especially as a father, like that's a hard thing to kind of
Hmm.
it tears you apart. When you're searching for a small little person, a little human, and you're in the water, you're in the mud, it's at night. You're on the side of the highway trying to find with every ounce of your being this person. So like when I got off shift this morning, I was able to send a text and go, I had a rough night, and I'm gonna need a day or two to kind of process, but I'll keep you in the loop. And she was like, okay, cool. Let me know what you need. Like it wasn't a long drawn out thing. It's just a simple, hey, okay, good to know. I'll touch base with you when I talk to you on the backside of that call.
Hmm. Do you
But
know
yeah,
who
so you
the
got
salty paramedic is?
yeah.
See, Cody Spalding. He wrote the book "Don't Lose Yourself,"
Mm-hmm.
and in the book he has the 8 plays, and one of those plays is I can't think of it for word, but essentially taking the jersey off. Um, when you're at work, work. When you're off work, take the jersey off. It's okay to put the
Mm-hmm.
jersey up.
Yep. So, it's yeah, faith therapy, friendships, if my lieutenant is one of my best friends. And so like I can talk to him and we have a rule that he's my best friend until he can't be as a supervisor. And it's
Hmm.
also part of my it's a reciprocal relationship to where I shouldn't put him in a position to be my supervisor, and he doesn't need to be my supervisor unless it's required. And we have a mutual
Yeah.
respect for that. But, I can talk to him and I can tell him, man, like this is going on in my life. And sometimes it's just, people are so afraid of saying the wrong thing when somebody is dealing with some stuff. And most of the time, my role as chaplain is just
Hmm.
this. I sit down, I listen to your side, not waiting for my turn to speak, but I listen with intention, and then we talk, and that's it.
Hmm.
Like everybody's so afraid of saying the wrong thing, but like he will most of the time just listen to what I gotta say, and he'd be like, "Hey, bro, you're wrong. You shouldn't have done that," or what a positive out of it, whatever you want to put in there. Because I am running on about 2 hours of sleep, so I apologize.
Oh,
But
you're good. I'm only gonna have you on
and
here for
it
about 15 more minutes.
and then you got hobbies. You know, go home and you know, do some wood crafting or make a paracord something or whatever your hobby is. Go fishing. But
Hmm.
it's that release. It's that, I have when I get home from shift, I don't care if I took a shower at work. When I come home from work, I will typically take a shower and rinse work off. And then I
Hmm.
can kind of start my time with my family.
I'm
But
an
that's
avid
that's
believer to think that firefighters have a second job not just because of finances, but because to identify with something else besides a firefighter.
you know what? I've never really kind of thought about that, but that's probably true.
Now, they might think it's financially motivated, but really they're
Subconsciously.
maybe so yeah, subconsciously it's gets them to think about something else besides being a firefighter.
But at the end of the day, like, just don't do nothing. Don't just come home and sit here and relive every call that you were just on or the calls from the past. Don't sit here and
Hmm.
just drown yourself in alcohol and substances. Don't just come home and kick the dog. Like, do something for your betterment and your mental and emotional and physical well-being. A lot of guys come home and they'll go for a walk before they walk in the door.
Oh yeah,
Just a 5, 10 minute walk just to kind of process and let things go. There's nothing wrong with that.
go exercise, go to the gym, go work out. Even if you worked out while you were on shift, go to the gym, work out. You know?
I am.
Yeah, man. So moving into the last part of this episode, you matter more than the uniform you wear. So I don't think a lot of people understand exactly what that means. A lot of people think that they were worthless, and now that they are a firefighter and they wear the badge, now they're worth something. I have the same feeling. I think that nobody cares for me, but when I wear that badge, I don't say, "Oh, I feel like a badass." I feel like people look at me with some worth, and I had that feeling for a long time. And I'm wearing an off duty shirt called Green Country Fools. I wear a lot of firefighter apparel because I like it. That's what I like to do. Sometimes I'll go to the gym and I'll wear my fire shirt because, well, last time it was because it was the only shirt I had available. But other than that, um, I will wear my fire stuff not all the time, but occasionally, and I don't feel bad about doing it because I'm not doing anything wrong with it. I'm not going to the bars wearing my fire shirt. I'm not, getting in a wrecks, cussing people out, or being a bad example with my shirt on. Um, in fact, I think it keeps me more accountable. Honestly, my personal opinion, I think it keeps me more accountable of how I act and perceive myself in public.
Well, and so I'll give you the other side of the coin. And I'm not saying anything that you're saying is wrong, but for me, so I retire in a couple of years from the fire service. Um,
Congratulations.
I've got 3 years left, and for me, I had to start creating a void between the fire service and my personal life. So
Hmm. You still going to
not
volunteer, or you just giving up?
no,
Giving it up?
I'm gonna be done riding a truck. My knees, my back. I've had a lot of injuries in my career.
Hmm.
I'm getting a lot of them dealt with right now. But I'm still gonna be in the chaplaincy world in regard to the fire service.
Yeah.
Like I said, I feel like that's my calling. But I had to create a chasm uh, between the two lives. So I don't wear I don't wear fire department stuff when I'm off duty. Um, you come into my house and there is little to zero fire department photos or anything. And it's not that I'm saying that it's bad. I had to do that for myself because
Hmm.
shameless plug, and it's not out yet, but I talk about this in my book that I'm writing about how, when I first started in the fire service, I was a wallflower in high school. I didn't
Hmm.
I was in multiple high schools throughout my high school career. Been all over the country, and you know, I didn't have a lot of friends, so I was a wallflower. And then whenever I got
Hmm.
out, I did a lot of jobs, construction, and so on and so forth. And then when I hit the fire service, I found, like you said, I found worth. I found value in myself when I put my badge on and my uniform on for the first time. Like, it filled
Hmm.
me with something. I don't know how to explain it exactly, but I felt importance. And for someone who is always overlooked and unseen, to feel value, it can be a dangerous thing. And it hit me a few years down the road is, the same grocery store I would go in on shift wearing my uniform, and
Hmm.
people would like look at you and they would talk to you, and interact on a regular. And then when I go in there in board shorts and flip-flops and nobody cares. Nobody cares who
Mm,
you are. So, that was a shocking thing for me in a good way because it made me start to
mhm,
realize that I need to and I have to be more than, and if you reflect back to when we started this, I listed off my credentials, and
mhm.
firefighter and chaplain are down close to the bottom because at the end of the day, all that can be taken away.
Yep,
And,
100%.
I'm still a father to three great kids. I'm still a husband to my wonderful wife. We're going to be celebrating 25 years in November. Um, but, and my faith, like, I don't know how anyone would ever take my faith. I think that's almost impossible. So, no
Yep.
matter what happens, there was I had a scary thing back in 2013 where I had an orthopedic surgeon tell me that because of my injuries that I was never going to work on a truck again.
Mm,
And, I had to come to kind of come to grips with that and make a decision if he was right or if he was wrong. And he was wrong because I didn't allow myself to succumb to that. But during that time, I went through a rough spot with some depression and the woe is me and why is God doing this to me and why is he allowing this to happen and all these things and you know then I just had a whisper one day like this isn't this can all be taken away at any point, so you need to start creating some boundaries in your life of
oh,
who
yeah.
you are and what you want to be. And so at the end of the days I had to get my priorities right of who I was and what truly mattered in my life. So again, I'm not knocking
Oh,
anybody. You do you, but for me, as I get closer to retirement, um, I've seen retirement go sideways where you know, and again, I hate to do it, but in my book, I talk about a
no, dude,
acquaintance of
please
mine
sign me up
who,
for a
who
copy of your book.
I talk about an acquaintance of mine. Like you went to his house, and he was a lieutenant or a captain. You go in his house and you knew exactly 5 steps in what he did for a living. But he's not doing too hot right now. And
Mm,
because once he retired, you go from you gave 30 years of your life, 25 years of your life to an organization, and the day you retire, people start forgetting about you.
that is true.
The phone calls stop. You know, you just don't come to work the next third day. You
I
have
think
time.
I think what's important, and I wish every firefighter out there, young, new, old, whatever, put this in heart. You are replaceable on the truck, and while you may have some sense of authority, ability, whatever you want to call it, because you wear that badge, understand you need to be doing it for you. Do it for yourself. Don't do it for your wife, your girlfriend, because she thinks it's cool to have a hot firefighter. Don't do it for your kids because they think the wee woo truck's really freaking cool. Do it for you. And if you aren't happy with where you're at, if you're not happy, if you yourself are not happy with as much as you like to flaunt the fact that you're a firefighter, then stop doing it.
Mhm.
But like I said, I flaunt it because I like it. That's what I like to do. I don't do it for your approval. I do it because I want to do it. Now, Chris, on the other hand, doesn't do it because he doesn't want to do it. He doesn't need to do it because he
Exactly.
fights
That's
fire
what I
and
was
he's a
looking
fire
for.
chaplain for himself.
So, one of the things that a mentor of mine, which if you don't have a mentor, go find one. Uh, there's no sense in reinventing the wheel. People have been
Mm-hmm.
through some stuff in life, and they don't have to be an older person. And sometimes it's a reciprocal relationship. I have a friend of mine who we mentor each other. They're in different seasons of life. But if you don't have a mentor, go get one. But I had a mentor, and he held me accountable. And he would ask me, typically in December, what my um, what I forget the word. Essentially, like what my motto or my word
Mm.
of the year was going to be. And it's been several. It's been intentionality. But one of the ones that's always there is legacy.
Mm.
Is the fire department better or worse for my existence? Are my friendships better or worse for my existence? Did I make an impact? And that sounds like it can be selfish, but when I say impact, I look at all the people that I have trained over the last 23 years or 22 years, all the people I have trained. Most of the people that were my probationary firefighters are my supervisors. They're my battalion chiefs. They're my captains. They're my fire chief currently was at one point a probationary firefighter that I worked with.
Mm.
So, did I do something? Did I create something in their mind that when I'm long gone out of the fire service, that they may reflect back on and go, oh man, he taught me this? Or are they passing that down to the next generation after of the things that I taught them, and so on
Mm.
and so forth? And I don't say that to make big of myself, but you have to approach anything that you do. Is this better or worse or no change for me being a part of it?
Mm.
And if it's not for the
100%.
better, you got to start examining how you're doing, or if you're just a taker, or if you're a giver.
You got to have a balance. I would say it's okay to take, but not
Yeah.
more than your fair share.
Well, it's, there's seasons of life. Sometimes you're going to be a taker, sometimes you're going to be a giver, and sometimes you're just going to be there. But
Mm.
you don't always want to just be there.
100%. Well, Chris, as we're wrapping up, is there anything else you want to breach on besides those 5 topics?
Um, yeah, just if you're willing, go on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and comment. Tell me what you think, because I want to create a conversation with people. If you watch one of my videos and it impacted you, one of one of my favorite things is, and I don't say this to be pompous, but I get messages, direct messages on all platforms all the time. People telling me that they were going through some stuff and a specific video at a specific time hit them in a way that was beneficial.
Mm.
And they tell me this regularly, and that is my fuel to keep going and to keep putting out content and to keep trying to be um, intentional about the videos I put out. So if something affected you for the good or not, comment, let me know. Let's have a conversation about it. And you know, I
Very
that's
important.
I think ultimately at the end of the day, we have to have conversations. We can't just be mad for the sake of being mad. We can't be, we have to be able to communicate. This is what you did, or this is what you said that I didn't like or I did like, and
Hmm.
and have those open conversations. Because like I said, there's several videos that I put out that they have 400,000 views, but because I have just a lot of old salty firefighters in the comments calling me names, every name under the sun, but there's no
Hmm.
conversation. I don't know why they're upset, and I've tried asking them and they won't respond. So let's have a conversation on there. And I do put a newsletter out on Substack. It's
Hmm.
the same newsletter that I give to my firefighters every month. So if you want to go out and read that, everything, all my social media is exactly the same. Chats with Chappy. Um, let's have a conversation. Let's talk about it. Let's try to make this place better for the ones that are coming up behind us.
Absolutely. And guys, you heard it here, right here on Tales from the Tailboard Podcast. My guest today has been Chris Cottle. And you can find him on all social medias, including Facebook, TikTok, and Substack with Chats with Chappy. Guys, I want to thank you for being a part of this episode today. Again, sorry for being gone so long. I have just life things getting around. I was trying to post a video every week, but now I think it's going to be about every month just because life gets in the way, guys. And because I don't have any sponsors, well, I wasn't getting paid before, but I don't get paid for this podcast. I produce it all myself. Everything you see, the guests don't get paid. Chris came on non-paid. I mean, I didn't offer him a damn thing to come and be a guest today. No guest that I have on has been paid to come on. All the recording equipment that I use, Riverside, all the editing, everything like that is done on my own dime. With that being said, I just appreciate you for being here. Thank you for being a part of my world and their world, and really bringing meaning to what it means to be a firefighter, EMT, police, fire, medical. I know I said those two already. If you're in the military and you serve our nation, thank you for doing that. If you're in the hospitals and you're where we transferred the patient to and you're taking care of our patients now, thank you. With that being said, I want you to have a good night. Make sure to follow me on all social medias, Tells from the Tailboard Pod on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram. And you can message me as well as Chris said, you can message him. We will respond to all emails and all messages, all comments. Chris, thanks, man. And I hope to have many more conversations with you in the future, not the past.
I appreciate it.
All right, guys. Have a good night.
Dispatch, medic 1, show medic 1 en route.